I
Hey,
guess.
good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on summer blooming bulbs. This is always a fun one to do as spring begins to arrive. Just going to take a quick couple of minutes while everybody's getting logged in to go over notes in case we have anybody who is new today. If you are new, welcome and welcome back to everybody who's attended these classes in the past. If you are new, this is a webinar format, so we'll be taking questions towards the end. You can type your questions in to the Q&A box, and I will be relaying those questions to Peg when she's ready to take them. If you have any tech issues during the class, or if you have questions, you're welcome to send them to the chat, which I will open up right now. Just be aware if you're sending those questions, sometimes I lose them. So if you notice I'm not asking the question, you can send it back to Q&A. But I do try to keep an eye on that. I will try and send to the chat all of the plants that Peg mentions today, and we'll send out a list following where I can actually check the spelling. I'm not always 100% on the spelling for these, but I do my best. And we'll follow up, like I said, with notes, with a plant list, and with an access to the recording. So don't worry too much if you miss the name of a plant, we'll have it for you. Um, I think that's about it. For those of you who don't know Peg, Peg works at our Fair Oaks store. She has for many years, and she's been an educator for us. For many years, she used to do our TV show that we had called Gardening Advisor, and now does these webinars for us and classes in our store. So, Peg, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Sally, and good afternoon, everyone. And I do apologize. I try my best to get to Sally a list of the things that I'm going to be talking about, but that did not happen today. And so I'll try to be considerate of that as I go along. And the topic for today is summer bulbs, and we use that term bulbs very loosely because an iris is a rhizome and others have different names really, but we're lumping them in and we're calling them all bulbs at this point. And I'm going to concentrate on the summer bulbs, but I also have some fun things in the back, which I'll bring up after we've talked about the summer bulbs. I'm going to talk about the spring bulbs that are in bloom right now and how we can enjoy those inside as well as out. And I'm going to share with you primarily my experiences with these things and the ones that I haven't had any experience with. But a great deal of experience with the first one, if you will bring that up, Danny. I absolutely love all of the iris, particularly the German iris, the bearded iris. This is a perennial. As I said, it is a rhizome technically, and how you plant it is very important. As I go along, I have a few pictures to share with you as to where these are planted. You can see their boxwood in the background. There's peonies in the background. The iris pretty much needs to be near the front of a border because it needs sunshine on those rhizomes and does not like any soggy water. Likes water, but likes good drainage. So this is how I use it in several areas, and I have a number. We'll go through. I think there's a couple. Yes, there's another one anyway of a beautiful one that I have. If we'll bring up the next picture, Danny. This is a beautiful ever bloomer, not ever bloomer, rebloomer, okay? And it does bloom in the spring and it does rebloom in the fall, which is wonderful. Now, I consider peonies, iris particularly, queens of the garden. And I want to say that I need to get a chair and sit down in front of it and enjoy it because they are unfortunately fleeting. Now, in the background is a different type of iris. It's a Siberian iris, which is thought as more of a root than a rhizome. But if we come back to me, let's talk just a little bit about the care of those. We have lovely bulbs right now that are reasonably priced if you want to invest in some of these. And this iris, and I think there's, let's see how many is in here. Three. There's three iris in here. And I don't want to make too big a mess, but I do want to take this out and separate it out a little bit. Okay. You can see that this is already beginning to sprout. There has been just enough moisture in for it to do that, even though it's inside. Now, this is more than one. In fact, it's supposed to be three. Yes, it is. I'm not going to pull that one totally apart. But here is the rhizome. And when you plant that, the important thing to do is to let a little bit of that rhizome show above the top of the soil. You do not want to bury it totally. You want to spread out the roots, be sure they're all covered, and leave a tiny bit of that exposed. And I don't mulch heavily right on top of these clumps either, okay? Because I want it to drain really well and I want the sunshine to come into that. Now, this is hardy outside. Even though it has this little new shoot, you can go ahead, and the sooner you buy these, the better, because the longer they stay unplanted, the weaker they get. So it's very strong. And I've tested a number of these, and this year these bulbs are gorgeous. So as soon as possible, get some of these hardy ones in the ground. You can go out and plant this now. Now, I would pull some leaves up around this because it's obviously a little early for that to be showing. And we are supposed to have 20 degrees tonight. I haven't looked at the long range forecast, but it's mid-March. So there's the potential for freezing weather for the next couple of weeks. So I'd pile some leaves around this to protect it. Okay. But that is a wonderful plant. And I don't think this is a rebloomer, but there are some rebloomers among it. Wonderful, wonderful plant. Bearded iris. Okay. And then I think we'll bring up the next one, Danny. These are very unusual lilies, Lycoris, Nyrene. There's several of them that are like surprise lilies, and they throw up their foliage soon, and the foliage stays in place, and then midsummer it dies back, and then you get this flush of flowers up through wherever it's planted. And here it's at the base of an azalea with an ostrich fern with it. Now, I really need to move this, and the best time for me to do that is when it begins to die back, where I can see where it is and then know where I want to plant it, where it gets more sunshine. Because when we plant in our garden long term, you're going to have things that grow and overgrow certain areas. Love this plant, and it comes into bloom in late summer. And if we come back to me, we'll see that there are other varieties. This is a beautiful red of that same type. It's a Nyrene and needs to be treated the same way. Can be planted out into the ground now because it is hardy. Okay. And then if we'll bring up the next picture, Danny, I have grown a lot of glads. I enjoy arranging with them, bringing some into the house. There's a lot of different types of glads. This particular one is a smaller, thinner one that I love to use for arranging. And the corms can be planted in the ground now. Okay, so these are all hardy. And if we go to the next one, Danny, this is an area that's pretty much planted primarily for pollinators, the birds, the bees, and the butterflies. It's a steep bank. next to a retention pond at the border of my property. And you can see here that there are the bearded iris. They're planted near the top where they get really good drainage. There's lavender there that gets good drainage. And there's a lot of other things coming on. There's fennel, a lot of different bulbs. This is just one tiny view of it, okay? So again, that's where I did. Now, not everybody has that kind of space, but think about what you really like and how much space do you have. And you can do this on a reduced scale, okay? Now, next one, Danny, I think is an absolute favorite of mine, and that is the hardy lilies. The oriental lilies, they're just fantastic. And there are a lot of hybrid lilies. Most of them are very fragrant. And when you plant them out into the garden, they like slightly acidic soil. And while we're talking about that, we now, both at Merrifield and here at Fair Oaks, are happy to test your soil for pH, which is very important for the needs of the various flowers. So if you bring a baggie full of soil in, dug deep down, 6 inches down, pulled out, and an amount that they can measure this with, if you bring it in, we can test for the pH, okay, which is very good. And now's a good time to do that as you're beginning to think about all this planting. Hybrid lilies, oriental lilies, Asiatic lilies, all similar. And this one, a couple of weeks ago, had begun to sprout in the package here. And so I took it and put it in a large baggie. I put some good potting soil in it. I moistened that potting soil, not wet, 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 but nice and moist. And I put those roots inside of here, and look how beautifully they've grown. Now, what will I do? Because these are hardy outside right now, and it is very important with the lilies, if you love them, to go ahead and get those in the ground as soon as possible. Now, 20 degrees would knock that out because it's been inside where it's warm. So I'm going to have to harden this off before I plant it in the ground. And I will do that in one of two ways. Because it's growing now, it's doing well, I can leave it in there and ease it in and out or leave it outside if it's not going to freeze, until it hardens off for 3 or 4 days and then plant it in the ground. What I may do if I look at the forecast and I see frost in the picture over the next week, I may plant it up in either 1 or 2 gallon pot and ease that in and out until it has hardened off and then plant it in the ground. So I absolutely love these. There's an incredible choice of colors among these. Here's another one. If you come back to me, Danny. This is a beautiful one, incredibly fragrant. This is one of the oriental lilies, okay? Look, part sun, very well drained soil. Now, one thing that I do need to comment to you is the deer absolutely love them as much as they love hosta. I have a lot of them inside a deer fencing where I grow my vegetables because I don't want to spray those with Bodex. But that's the only thing that saves me or saves these lilies that are not behind a fence. I do use Bodex. Follow the instructions. In the springtime, you may need to spray things like this every 3 weeks, thoroughly coating it, because you're getting a lot of new growth in the spring. In the summertime, once a month is usually enough because rains don't rain it off. Now, the rain that we had yesterday, whoa, I had a lot of rain yesterday, for which I was grateful because I had been very dry. So with the lilies, you do have to face the fact that deer will eat the lilies, but they're wonderful. There's a few more pictures, Danny. Let's show.
Heck, in the picture with the lilies, what was
Yes.
the purple leafed plant?
Oh, yes, that's a grass. It's an ornamental grass, and it's Pinnacetum
Okay.
rubrum, and it is an annual grass. Okay, absolutely love that. Now these are in the bed that's beside the road. The back bed has a lot of Hacanagloa in it, which I love. It's easy maintenance. The weeds, it's so thick the weeds don't come through, and it's on the border where it gets a lot of shade. But out near the front, near the road, where all the people pass by, I have borders there, and they are in primarily sunshine. They get 6 to 8 hours of sun, which is adequate to grow these well. And that is an ornamental grass, Pentacetum rubrum. Okay. And in the next picture, you'll see another grass, but a lower growing one. It's a variegated carex. And this particular picture happens to be taken here at the garden center. So you'll see not only the lilies in the background, because the lilies are tall and they need to be center or in the back of a border. But this is carex, there's juniper next to it, there's candy corn, spirea in there, a lot of wonderful things that we planted with it. And in the following picture, again, this is beside the road in that same general border, but a little further up. And these are the oriental lilies. Now, bulbs. We think of this as a bulb, okay? In front of that is another bulb, but it is the bulb that you buy in the fall. Allium. There's several varieties. Giganteum is one. And this is after they've gone out of their peak bloom. And they look fragile, but they are not fragile. They will stay up. Now they're purple, okay? You can go out and spray them if you want to. I've done that, but not very often. Or they can be picked and used in arranging later on. In front of that is a row of sedum autumn joy. Okay, so this is how I use some of these plants. And in the following picture, another absolute favorite hardy plant can be planted now. We will have a lot that will be growing in the annual section later. This is taken later in the season, and that plant is Tricertis in front of it. Excuse me. It is a color contrast and a beautiful combination. You see the dark leaf here. There's also a variegated leaf. And here again, if you come back to me, then this is how they come. And it is really, they're big bulbs, nice bulbs. And this one is just tiny started. So it can be planted in the ground soon, okay, because it's very hardy. This one is not quite as hardy. Don't want to plant it quite as early as the others that I brought up. So actually, I would plant this up in a baggie to give it a little moisture to keep it going. And then in the 3 weeks, plant it outside in the ground. And there's several different kinds. There's green leaf, and then there's bronze leaf available too. This is a red one, this is an orange one, but we will have, in addition to the ones we've got now, a lot of these things in the perennial section. And if the next picture, please, Danny, is in a border again in my front garden. You can see that there are hydrangeas in bloom. Now, my hydrangeas, I went out last week and cut away the dead wood, thinned out some of the stuff, pruned the tiny tips of this one because it's hydrangea microphylla, and it doesn't want to be pruned hard or you'll lose your looms. But it's supposed to be 20 degrees tonight, so I'm hoping I can get home in time to wrap my frost cloth around it, because that's one reason they don't bloom well is if they get frosted. And it does have some new growth. But below, I want to talk about the bulb that's in bloom, and that is a calla lily. I planted this group several years ago. It's hardy. It can be planted now, and also comes in different colors. I would like to soak that bulb for 2 or 3 hours in just barely lukewarm water before you plant it, because that helps it to get a good start. You can start it inside in the baggie and let it wake up, or you can go ahead and plant it directly in the ground according to the directions. Now, this is a border. It's open to a lot of things. The golden that you see there is spirea candy corn. And in the front is liriope, which is used as a complete border edging for that bed. And there's no maintenance here other than running the lawnmower over it at this time of the year on high, 3.5 to 4 inches, and cutting it back. That's the only thing you ever have to do to liriope. I don't have to edge that bed. The mower is just mowed along next to it. And I believe there's another picture there, a better picture of those calla lilies in bloom. Calla lilies can also be picked and brought inside, and they're very long lasting. And the next picture, please, is an allium in bloom. Again, not available to plant right now, available in the fall, but it joins the bulb family in late spring as it comes into bloom. And the next one, please, Amy. And that is palladium. Palladiums are a little bit of a challenge for me. Sometimes I can start them inside in this, and it's, well, this is actually a little sitting area where I have a fairy garden, and I love the color pop here because it's in a lot of shade. There's Japanese maple there. There's Hinoki cypress behind it. There's a path of gravel there, which I totally enjoy. And the next picture, they're all in containers here in the summertime. One thing I want to impress, caladiums do not like cold weather. They do not like cold soil. Don't be in too big a hurry to plant those plants in mid-April because it's too cool for them. Wait until it warms up a little bit, okay? But you can, and there's one more picture that I want to share before you come back to me, Danny. And that I've used them in containers. I love to use them in containers because containers are movable. You can use them wherever you really enjoy them. And this is down in a little outer patio outside my lower level at my home. So now come back to me, okay? You can put those corms into a bag and leave it open, not in hot sunshine, but it needs some light, so a window or grow lights. And it really works quite well. Leave it in that. If it grows beautifully, then you can pot it up into a bigger pot and hold on to it inside with good light until late April, okay? So that's how you deal with caladiums. Now, I really want to talk about some of my absolutely fun plants, and that is the newer varieties of colocasia. Okay, that's the big elephant ears, and they are not hardy outside, just as the caladiums are not hardy outside. Neither are these. So if we bring up a picture, Danny, of these, I use a lot of them in containers. This is a really large leaf, and you can't see it, but the back of it is almost a burgundy color, and it's absolutely beautiful. That plant stands at least 6 feet tall, not hardy. And of course, it's planted in containers along with beautiful coleus, which I love. Okay. The next picture, another use. This one is called teacup, and that was taken here at the garden center. And as the feature in the container, with I believe it's primarily possibly petunias and the trailing dicentra. These do not overwinter in the garden. They are not hardy, but they are spectacular until frost takes it down. It's called teacup because when it rains into it, it spills out like a teacup. Okay. The next picture is in the ground. That same bulb that you saw earlier, and it is a bulb, is a caladium, but it's the not hardy ones. They're tropical. These are planted in the ground. Now, I have successfully, and I'm waiting to see what this year's going to do because we had some temperatures in the single digits for a period of time, more than once this year. I have overwintered these successfully for 3 years in the ground by placing unopened mulch bags on the top and then putting landscape fabric over it, pegged down with the sod pin so that it didn't blow away, and not removing that until heavy frost is past, which is, I usually try to take it away in mid-April. Okay. And I'm very pleased with having been able to overwinter these because in the past, I would dig them, put them into a plastic tub with some soil, overwinter them in my section of my unfinished basement under LED drop lights and barely watering them a little bit every 3 or 4 weeks. And I overwintered them beautifully there. But that was very hard for me to drag those things in and out. So I discovered that I could do it outside. In the next picture, please. In a container, okay? I have used these in containers. These are the smaller growing ones, and it's used with, again, another bulb, begonias. They are not good until frost is over. There are some begonias that can be overwintered, can be grown in these grow packs, like I just showed you before. It's the Ziploc bag, but you do not close the top. You want air to get in there. You can start them inside these bags, okay? This is the dahlia, by the way, which I intended to show you earlier. That's just, you can't see because the little things are popping now, but they're too tiny for the big cut. But here's what I've done. I've covered the bulbs, and here's the tippy top, okay? And I'm going to leave this in here until it really begins to grow, and then I'm going to pot it up because I cannot plant this outside until certainly not before mid-April, probably late April. So it will be inside plant until then. Okay, the overview of the area where I use a lot of these colocasias that are fancy. If we go to the next one, please. This is a huge sitting area that's very important for my wonderfully large family, okay? And it's a collection of pots. It's a collection of a number of the summer bulbs. There are caladiums in here. There's the colocasia in here. I have the begonias in here. You can see I've got some contrast of textures with the carex spilling out. There's Hycomycloa grass there, a number of things. And this is an area where we all enjoy going and sitting out and enjoying the garden. And then in the next picture, just an area, not my garden, a friend's garden. This is where you can use a lot of these things, whether it's at the front of the border or the center of the border or the back of the border. And this space is not huge. Those are dwarf form of boxwood in the front. So you don't need a huge space for these things. They really do very well. And come back to me for a minute, Daniel. There's many different types of those. This is the teacup. And the instructions are here. This one is a dark leaf one like you just saw in that container. And then I have different colors of the caladiums, and they're beautiful bulbs. What I did not show you yet, and yet I want to talk about, this is one that I have never grown from a bulb. I bought them, okay, but I have not grown them from a bulb. And it's a spidery little thing that needs to be soaked for at least 4 hours in just tepid water because it will swell up nicely. And then in a tray with drainage, I put moist potting soil and put those little things in the tray until they sprout and begin to grow. I don't know how successful that's going to be because now we are getting, we are getting the ranunculus in at the garden center and in full bloom and bud. They love cool weather. They're not going to love 20-degree weather. So you're going to really need, if you've already bought these and they're outside tonight, you'll either need to cover them with frost cloth or bring them inside, one or the other. Now, I want to share with you something that I enjoy. And that is working with bulbs. Because I love the learning curve anyway. I always have. And so I have many, many fall planted bulbs in the garden. And I love to bring them in and arrange them inside so that I can enjoy them inside on nasty days like yesterday. And we have a lot of bulbs here at the garden centers. And by January, the sales have slowed, and by mid-January, usually we're getting rid of some of those. And so I decided to trial some of those late in the season because the bulbs were still nice and firm for these hyacinths. And so I started them in flats inside in potting soil under the LED lights. I lined them up in a flat, okay? And this morning, or yesterday actually, I put a piece of landscape fabric. I do this in the bottom of every one of my containers because I like to keep the soil inside. I put a small piece in the bottom because this has drainage in. I just went out between the rains and collected an attractive clay container and put some soil in the bottom and transplanted those that were in that flat into this container so that I could use it inside. I have a large table in my kitchen, and it's a fun place because I'm in the kitchen a lot, and it's a fun place to enjoy them. And they're very fragrant. So I planted them up in here. They will continue to grow. And when they are finished, I'll trim it off. I'll sit it outside. I'll probably put some fertilizer on it and then plant them in the ground while they're still green. But I decided to weave a little grapevine around it and throw on a little bit of moss so that it was really interesting. So that's going to be with me for a couple of weeks to enjoy. And great success if you forgot to plant the bulbs in January, plant them up. We keep them in such a situation that they do get the cold that they have to have and the period of cold that they need. I'm not going to store bulbs in my refrigerator, okay? I don't have room for that. Now, there is one last picture, I think, Danny, which I'd like to show them. I enjoy bringing the flowers inside also. And these are the lilies that I talked about earlier, the hybrid lilies that are hardy outside. And I picked some of those for the 4th of July. I had hydrangea that was just coming into bloom. And I had some dried allium. Allium schuberti is the big one. They were dry. And so I used them because they reminded me of fireworks. And so we were having a party for the 4th of July, and this was the centerpiece on my deck. Now, if you come back to me, I want to share with you a couple of other things, okay? And I need to bring them up so that hopefully you can see them. I don't know because I can't adjust the camera. I have a huge collection of containers from over the years. Particularly, I have a lot of teacups. And so I did a little arrangement, which I enjoy very much, in a teacup. Inside of this is a little pin holder. I have a collection of pin holders. It's very easy to use and it holds the flowers very fast. This, which I've used as my line material, is a large plant. It's called Coreolopsis. Coreolopsis. Coryllopsis. And it's used as a part of my border. It would love to have full sun, but it doesn't get it. It only gets about 6 hours. So it's a little thin, but ooh, I do love it. And then I've used some of the little miniature daffodils that have come in and some grape hyacinths. And I picked just a little bit of greenery from the sweet box. Sarcacava. Sweet box. It's just going out of bloom. And the little blossoms inside are incredibly fragrant. So that's how I can enjoy some of the outside bringing it in. These are not summer bulbs. They are bulbs that are in bloom in the garden right now. And I want to bring this one in because I also picked up the colors in that one. It had blue in the cups, so I needed blue in the container. This one has a lot of red in the cup and the saucer. And so I picked little pieces of the spirea. The spirea that you saw in the earlier picture called candy corn, as the new growth comes out, it's this reddish bronze, which is a beautiful color. And then it sort of changes colors from more yellowish to more yellow brown in the fall. But it does have a beautiful bloom too. And after the blooms kind of fade off is a good time to prune it back by a third to keep it nice and thick. I love it. Its max height is about 3 feet. And it's part of that border that you saw earlier. And inside of there are a couple of the helleborus. One is a very dark one. I have no idea as to the variety because the helleborus are very promiscuous. I know a lot of people don't like it that they seed so much. I love it because I have ground covers of it. And I love to pick it and bring it inside. All of these things need to be conditioned. And I picked them yesterday between the rainstorms and brought them in and put them in just slightly warm water. And they soaked overnight, and then I arranged them when I got in this morning. So another teacup, okay? We'll put that one over here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about another shrub. And you either love it or you hate it. And I love it because of where it is. I have a large space and I have borders that have small trees. Well, they've got some oak trees too, and dogwood and redbud and a lot of hydrangeas, oak leaf hydrangea and forsythia and that coreopsis that we had. And so I picked the forsythia and made a larger arrangement. Again, went down to my collection of containers, and I wanted to pick up the beautiful goat yellow color of this because it's so exciting at this time of the year, particularly. And I used the forsythia as my line material here and around, cascading over so that it's somewhat asymmetrical. Love the forsythia. It's a big plant, blooms in the spring, and needs a lot of space. And then I have this blossom is Mahonia, Mahonia, Mahonia. And I took some of the smaller branches because I have huge clumps of this in the woods. Leather leaf, it's beautiful. Evergreen, deer don't eat it. Deer don't eat the forsythia either, okay? Trimmed away the very spiky leaves on the Mahonia, used it as an accent piece coming out from that, and then did a filler of the various helleborus, which I cut. I have them in abundance, and added some of the daffodils. Now, if you are arranging with your daffodils, you need to put those in a separate container for at least 3 or 4 hours before you add them to an arrangement of other things because they seep a thing that's poisonous to the other flowers. And so you want to be sure that you give those time to kind of weed that out before you put it into a combination arrangement. But I did a little repetition with this in that I put a Mahonia here, and then I put a little piece cascading out here. And the blend of color, I tried to work enough into the container to have it come together nicely, okay? So I hope that you enjoyed that. Now, how did I control that? I do want to share that with you before we go to questions, Sally. And I know I'm taking up a fair amount of time with this, but it's something that's very pleasurable. Gotta bend over again because there's just two things I want to share before we go. There's different techniques of arranging. I told you in the little teacups I have pin holders. They're very sharp, okay? Pin holders. With this particular one, there's florist tape that I tape. You don't want to tape it too much. You can't get stuff in. So I've taped a couple here and a couple there to the tippy top. And that way I was able to brace it somewhat as I put it in. This is not something you want to use if you've got a beautiful china piece or something with silver rim. You don't want to use it on that. The tape might not be good for that, okay? But in most other things, it's quite safe. Now, as far as this container is concerned, and I'd like to share this and then we'll take some questions in. There's two things when you've got moisture, whether it's an arrangement here or this. I did not manage to get out and pick up a clay saucer. This container has a hole in it. It needs to for drainage, okay? And I'll need to add some water in every few days, perhaps, to this. So I will put a clay saucer under here. That clay will reap some moisture. You do not want it sitting directly on furniture. I have a collection, and there's a bigger one under there, from the greenhouse, the cork boards. This keeps the moisture off your furniture. And so I always, when anything is moist, place one of these underneath, the size appropriate for the thing. I will, before I place this on the table, also place probably this one underneath it because you really won't see it anyway. But it will keep the moisture from that container from getting on your furniture. Well, I hope that I've explained that reasonably well. And Sally, if we have some questions, we'll try to pick up on a few of those.
Yeah, we sure do. So everybody, we'll take as many questions as we can. Just a quick reminder, I like to share for Peg's class. I know Peg says this too. If you have plant clinic questions, if you're having an issue where some of your plants have some diseases or anything, I'll probably refer you on to the plant clinic, but you're welcome to send them in. I'll let you know, especially if you're not sure, I'll let you know if we need to probably have you bring in a sample or a photo to our clinic. Um, First question. Are there any lilies that are deer and rabbit resistant? Do you know of any?
Well, generally speaking, they don't eat my glads. They don't eat my kennas. Now, let me tell you, before we go any further, nothing is deer proof, okay? But I have a lot of deer, okay? But I have not had them eat my glads. I haven't had them eat the cannas. Um, they don't eat the elephant ears, and they haven't eaten my caladium, but they will eat the dahlias, and they
Okay.
will eat the oriental lilies.
They love themselves a really nice bloom.
Yes.
Um, okay, thank you.
They won't eat the hellebores, they won't eat the daffodils, they won't eat the forsythia or the mahonia. So everything in here is safe.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, man, dear. Okay, next question. When do you separate rhizomes of established plants?
Well, that could vary depending upon them. If I wanted to, and I probably should, just as the iris are waking up, which they will be any time now that you can work in your soil, you can divide iris. I don't like to divide them down too much because I want to see that bloom. You can take away some of the edges or half of it if you wish by lifting it with a fork or a shovel, and you can iris you can do, okay. um the dahlias, of course, you're planting them out that you dug in the fall, okay. They're not necessarily hardy to go through the winter. Sometimes they will, but this winter has been doubtful. If you have a big clump of gladiolus, you can divide those. Most things I would prefer to divide either one or two times. Either in the spring, just when they're waking up and you know where they are, and you can see where other things are so that you don't dig into daffodils or whatever, because I hate it when I do that. Or in the fall when they're going down is a good time to divide them, okay?
Okay.
Other than that, I move things around when I need to, okay? Just be careful that you water appropriately when you replant and check it if you have a dry period to be sure it stays not sopping wet, but that there's moisture there. Watering is key to survival.
Okay. Um, okay, this is back to the elephant ears where you were discussing you covered some of them with the mulch and
Yes,
some of them you can bring inside. So the
but you
question was,
can do one or the other or some of
yeah.
both.
Well,
Yes.
what do you do with like the really big ones. Do you just leave all of those outside? Like
No,
the ones that
no,
reach 6 feet tall?
no, you can't. I left them outside only if I'm very careful about covering them. And
Gotcha.
I'm not talking about going out there and opening up bags of mulch. I'm talking about putting unopened bags
Okay.
on top of them. And that does two things. It's insulation, but it also repels some of the water because they don't want to be sopping wet over winter. They want moisture, but they're better not to be where they stay soaking wet. So this area where I have them in the ground, I have solid mulch bags. And then I put the black landscape fabric all the way over that and used sod pins to pin it down so that it would not blow away. That way I didn't have to dig a lot of those things. And as I said, for 3 years, I've had them come through beautifully. I have not gone out to wake them up yet because it's too soon. So I don't know what's going to happen this year, but I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, hopefully they made it. And
Yes.
when you do bring them inside, you just bring them in and you water them every few weeks, a little
Now,
bit.
if I don't want to do it outside, if I decide I'm going to dig
Dig
those,
them and bring them
I
in.
will wait until frost hits them. The
Okay.
top looks bitten. I'll dig them. I'll put them in a plastic tub without drainage, okay? I'll put that root ball and all. I won't clean it off. I'll put that in there and take it into the basement where I have one whole section where I overwinter things, and I will put just enough water on it every 3 weeks, maybe, to keep it from going bone dry.
Gotcha.
It'll
Okay.
go dormant, but it's not bone dry.
Okay. Okay. All right. Next question. Okay. You showed that picture of the beautiful sitting area with all the large pots.
Yes,
So the question is, do you have to water the pots every day?
I don't because they're large. The only place I use small pots is perhaps on my deck, and I do very little of that because I don't want to be a slave to watering. That area receives some shade. And anytime you have shade, particularly in the afternoon, your pots are not, if they're large, are not going to dry out as fast. If it were in full blazing sun, I would be out there watering every day. I probably would not have that many pots, okay? And this year, I promised myself I'm going to cut back on the numbers somewhat, okay? We'll see if I follow that rule. Uh, in the heat of summer, I definitely check it every couple of days. Sometimes it's 3 days if it hasn't rained, because you can't depend upon the rain, okay? Other than that, I do not have a sprinkler. I do not have a watering system. It's hose in, okay? When I water deeply, thoroughly, walk away from it. And usually it's every 3 or 4 days to water there, okay?
Okay. Okay. Um, how much water do elephant ears need? Are they thirsty plants?
They do not want to be planted in a site that goes bone dry.
Okay.
If it gets really the drought thing, sometimes we can have some in August to September, then water once a week really well. Don't water every day. Never do that in established things. If it's really, really dry, set up a low sprinkler and run it until that water sinks in at least an inch. And then don't water it again for a week. Okay. Because they love some moisture. Some of them will grow in very shallow water. Now, mine don't. They don't get that. They're in a normal situation and they are dependent largely on water, on rainfall, because in the ground, I don't water them very much, only if we have a drought.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. All right. Next question. How many blooms would you expect from one ranunculus plant?
Well,
What do you think?
I have this little baby down here, and that's one ranunculus. It's been grown in a greenhouse. I did not grow this plant. And as I told you before, I have not grown this plant from the little bare root. I'm going to try it this year, see what happens. Um, this one has 7 buds coming, and one already open. So that's fantastic. But it was grown in a
Okay.
greenhouse. This one was. Now I'm going to see what happens from that little bump, okay? Now this is totally a cool season plant. It's something to keep you really satisfied with color, along with all the violas and the pansies, which is it's just such a fun thing right now to walk out into our annual house because there's so much color there. But it's all early spring color that we need right now. So this and tulips, they're beautiful while it's cool and gone when they're hot. Okay. These are fantastic. I've overwintered a lot that I've put in the fall. They look kind of sad right now, so I've bought some of these in the six packs because my containers are 12 to 14 to 16 inches, even on my deck, which is easy for me to look out and enjoy. I don't have to worry about the deer, okay? And so I've tucked some of these little six packs are so fantastic because you can tuck them in among existing plants. And these I can also tuck into some of those containers. And when this bloom is finished, I will go in and snip it out right there, okay? So that all these will come through and do well. So you'll get a lot of pleasure out of these early blooming things and not be too anxious to get the plants that are summer bloomers in too soon. Like we get a lot of things in the first part of April, which you have to be prepared to cover if we're going to have a frost. We have a lot. And by the way, next week, and I hope you'll join us, I'm going to do a seminar. Sally asked me if I would do a seminar on vegetables and the early vegetables and going into summer too. Okay. I enjoy doing that because I love to have those. You can grow them organically, and we'll talk about how to do that. Okay. So I hope you'll join us next week. In the meantime, I told you about the deer repellent. When you're planting these things, earthworm castings are fantastic. I have plantain. I think I can lift this over and I'll work that thing. Asoma products are fantastic, and there's several, and I consider them to be somewhat equal. Plantain, garden tone, biotone is a wonderful thing too. I use this when I plant plants. When I plant them in the ground, when I plant them in containers, I mix this with the soil as I'm planting, okay? And I need to give some of my older azaleas a boost because the winter was hard on those. I went into winter on the dry side, which is not good for plants, okay? So I don't often fertilize all my big old azaleas because I use my own compost and or buy compost if I don't have enough. But I'm going to do the plantain, or actually not plantain on the azaleas because azaleas like an acidic soil. So I will use the acid form of that from the espoma. Otherwise, I will use the plantain and everything. So fertilizer is important. I hope we were able to cover most of the questions. And I apologize to you, Sally, for not spelling out everything here, but I wanted to cover a lot of territory. Okay.
Peg, thank you so much. Hopefully, I just realized, I'm sorry, I thought I'd muted myself. I was typing a few questions that came in. Hopefully that wasn't too noisy. Um, yeah, the one question I have for you before I let you wrap up that I need to check on, the yellow flower in your teacup that's not the daffodil, that really beautiful little teacup with the daffodils.
Yes.
Okay, what is the name of that flower? I completely missed, I
It's
couldn't catch the
Cor-
spelling.
it's Coreolopsis. Coryopsis. Lopsis.
Coreolopsis. It's almost like coreopsis, but coreolopsis.
No, it's Coreolopsis.
Coreo.
Lopsis. Corylopsis.
Gotcha.
Coreolopsis. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We had a question about that and I had missed it. There's no way I'm gonna get this. So, um,
Okay.
okay.
Did
Thank you
we
guys.
cover most of the questions?
We covered most of them, so we have a lot of nice comments coming in. So I may be missing some questions among some of the comments. But everybody, I just want to issue a reminder because we are out of time. You are welcome. I may have already messaged you and said to email me with your questions so that I can share it with the plant clinic. If you have a question you didn't get answered, you are also welcome to email me. I'm going to type my email address in here as always, real quick. And I will share, sorry, I'm merging my married name email address with my previous email address at mgcmail.com. Okay. You guys are welcome to email me any questions you have. You can also call our store. But if you email me the question, I'll share it with Peg or with the plant clinic as appropriate. I do not, as I always say, I do not try to answer these questions by myself.
And
So
it
don't,
was so
yeah.
exciting, Sally, outside to go out and cut all of these things because I
Yes.
totally enjoy arranging too and being able to enjoy them in the house and encouraging you to do the same and just bring them in and put them in a vase,
Yeah.
who cares as long as it pleases you, it doesn't matter, this pleases me. Okay.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Peg.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just please feel free to send us those questions. We'll have a link to the recording, a plant list, and a coupon coming out by email tomorrow around lunchtime. So keep an eye out for that. Please feel free to go visit everybody in the store. I know Peg would be happy to see you all. And Peg, do you want to wrap up with anything before we close?
Just thank you for watching, and I totally enjoy doing these, and I hope that they're informative for you. And come back next Tuesday. We're going to do vegetables.
Very fun. Can't believe spring's almost here. Thank you, Peg. I'll talk to you later.
Bye bye.
All right, bye, everybody.